Welcome to the Published and Paid podcast, where we share book, business, leadership, and life lessons in 20 minutes or less to help you build a thought leadership brand and business. My name is Jasmine Womack. I'm a former middle school language arts teacher turned seven-figure entrepreneur, and I am glad that you are here. Let's get started. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of the Published and Paid podcast with Jasmine Womack. In today's episode, I'm talking about how to build your dream. Now, I am about 6 years into full-time entrepreneurship. For me, it will be 6 years next month. Woo, 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 woo. Shouts out to me, because they say that most businesses don't make it past the 5-year mark, right? And I'm exceptionally glad and thankful that we're going into 6 years of full-time entrepreneurship, 8 years in this business and the self-publishing business and the online coaching and consulting industry as a whole. One thing that I've learned during my time in entrepreneurship is that if you want to grow to your first six, if you want to grow to multiple six figures or scale to seven, in your business, you cannot do it alone. Now, of course, we all have heard of anomalies, people who create these very low lift products and they create these massive audiences and they quote unquote build their businesses by themselves, right? Like I think one person even wrote a book on it, but even them hire VA or something at some point to help manage the load. They may not have full-time employees, but trust and believe they're not managing a full multi-million-dollar business by themselves. You're talking about emails, you're talking about admin, you're talking about uploading, publishing podcasts, you're talking about handling billing, potential refunds, card changes. Like there's no one person that's running a million or multi-million-dollar business who's actually creating the content, working 4 or 5 hours, 4 hours per day or whatnot, and doing all of the things in terms of administration, billing, communicate. It's just, I don't care what anybody says as a selling point. Somewhere they're going to have at least one VA, virtual assistant, helping them behind the scenes at the very minimum. When I was building my business, and I'm still building, and I got to the point in my business where I knew that I needed a team. And that was probably at about somewhere between $150,000 and $250,000 when I realized, you know what, I can't really do this by myself. I really need to hire. And I don't mean just outsourcing some projects to people. I mean like hiring as a part of the team. But it felt like when I was looking for this information, it felt like either people were just being gatekeepers, they were just gatekeeping the information, or they just were not sharing it, right? And it's also very possible that at that time, I may not have even known where to look. That's a possibility too, even though I was definitely asking. However, I've gotten it figured out. It's taken me years, but I've gotten it figured out. So when you are thinking about building your dream team, you first have to understand or develop your concept of what a dream team is for you. I want you to really think about that concept, dream team. What does it mean to you? This is the team of your dreams. And so for many, this would include forward thinkers. This would include people who can actually run your business without you being there. This is people that you can trust. You may want a very strong culture in a community feel among your team. This means that your team members are efficient and they do an amazing job and they take care of the business just as you would. This might not be yours, but for many, this might be how you define a dream team. I want you to sit down and think about what a dream team is for you or to you and what you think about when you think about a dream team, right? And so before we build a dream team, we have to first identify what that is for us. And then we have to start thinking about the outcomes that we need. One of the biggest mistakes that I made within my first several years of hiring is that I was hiring for the position and I was hiring for tasks to be done. I was not hiring for outcomes. And when I realized that I needed to hire for outcomes instead of hiring for roles, I had like an awakening, right? And I had this awakening after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and paying team members, not necessarily getting the results that I wanted. I mean, on the front, it looked great, but on the back end, I was still working overtime. And I was frustrated because I felt like, hey, I am losing out on money and I'm losing out on time because I feel like I'm doing all the work, although I have a team of people here that I'm paying. I'm like, something isn't adding up and something's got to change. And that something has to start with me because I'm the common denominator and I've been feeling this way for a while. And so what I realized, that's when I began to shift. I realized that you need to hire for outcomes instead of hiring for the roles. Okay. So this is going to require you to determine what are the outcomes that you want in your business. So for instance, I have a coaching and consulting business. So just for ease of use, we're going to use that, right? As a reference. How do you want your clients to be served? How do you want your clients to be serviced and supported? When you're thinking about client retention and renewals, reactivations, and referrals, how do you want that process to go? And who on your team should be responsible for that? Start identifying the outcomes that you want and then assign those outcomes to a role. When you start hiring for outcomes, then you'll be better prepared when you have interviews with people and you let them know this is what this role is going to require. Are you good with this? Are you good with learning how to do this? Or do you already have this skill set? It lets you go into an interview already knowing what you're looking for, knowing the type of person that you're looking for, and either the skill set they need to already have or the skill set they need to be willing to develop. And it's also going to help you develop a solid training plan for your new hire because you already know the outcomes that you want them to achieve. So when you hire based on outcomes, then you are more in alignment. You're more able to hire the type of person that can actually do the job. So that way, they're not doing base work while you're actually still doing all the job, all the other work. And then you're frustrated just really because you didn't communicate clearly enough and you didn't have a clear understanding of what you needed before hiring. So identify the outcomes that you need and then assign those outcomes to a role. And when you assign these outcomes to a role, this is going to likely require you to do a lot of brainstorming, whether it's on chart paper or whether you have a remarkable notepad or a notebook where you are literally drafting all of this because these descriptions will eventually become your job descriptions for that particular role that's outcomes based. And when you hire based on outcomes, then you can also determine the metrics, what they should do, how many touch points, how many calls booked, how many enrollees, so on and so forth. It just helps streamline everything because now there are clear expectations attached to every role. One of the easiest ways to spend a lot of your money and get minimum return is hiring based on role. When you hire based on role, then you end up hiring for tasks. That means that you're hiring people to do certain things, and those certain things might not necessarily be tied to income. So you might have co-coaches showing up on the calls. But if they're showing up on the calls and even if they're answering questions, how is that helping to drive revenue into the business? If you're hiring VAs or other team members and they are putting together newsletters and things of that nature, which is good, but it's a task and you just make it a task. How is this going to help drive income into the company? So while you might have tasks, of course, every role has tasks that will need to be fulfilled, right? But the task is not the outcome. The task may not necessarily be the outcome. So we have to be very clear. So I want to go back on this. When we talk about identifying the outcomes that you want, does this mean that you want to have a 80% retaining rate of your clients? Does this mean that you want to make sure that all of your clients receive some type of touch point each week, and their touch point, whether it's through email or through voice note, it leaves them feeling informed, empowered, and encouraged? Then you can build off from there. What does this need to look like in order for my clients to have this type of experience? So identify the outcomes that you need and then attach those outcomes to role. And this is a multi-step process, because in this, you'll be able to, like I said, identify your job descriptions, write out your job descriptions, write out the outcomes, the metrics, the things that need that the ways in which you're going to measure success, or the ways in which you're going to measure how you're going to determine whether or not the outcome is successful or not. Okay. Once you identify the outcomes that you need and hire based on and assign those outcomes to a role, then you can determine the type of person who would be the best fit for this role. So when you're looking at the type of person who would be the best fit for this role to achieve this particular outcome, you need to consider their qualities, you need to consider their characteristics, whether or not they pay attention to detail, if that matters to you in your business, whether or not they catch on quickly, or whether or not they need extra time to process. Are they good with tech, or do they adapt well to technological changes? Do they speak up when they need help or have a question, or do they just stew on it and say nothing at all and leave things gone undone? These are the things that you need to consider. Are they a self-starter? Do they have critical thinking skills? And do you understand their motivations? Like, why do they want to work with you? Why do they feel like they'd be an asset to your company or to your organization? What motivates them? Everybody's not money motivated. So giving someone a financial incentive for meeting a metric, it may or may not work for them. It just may or may not work for them. Okay, so determine the type of person who would be a best fit for this role. And this was where you look at their qualities and their characteristics. And so during the hiring process, or even during the onboarding process, likely during the onboarding process, this is where personality assessments come in place, so that you can actually see who you're hiring and you can get a deeper understanding of them. We use the DISC assessment during our onboarding process so that we can see the inner workings and the inner motivations and the inner attitudes and belief systems of someone. So you can use an assessment tool that's great for you, but the DISC is a personality assessment, because we need to see who we're bringing on, what type of personality they have, and even as a leader, how I need to connect with them. Okay. And of course, you have your hiring and your training processes. And so I'll actually be doing a separate podcast episode detailing how I hire now versus how I hired 2-3 years ago, and mistakes that I've made. And also why an effective training process is so important, and what your training process should look like. But that is part of it too. When you are building your dream team, you cannot hire people and you are not effectively vetting them. You're just hiring them because they were referred to you, or you hired them because they said that they fulfill or they can do a certain thing. That's not hiring. It involves a series of steps, and it actually should take a while. Hiring should involve a series of projects, of a series of test projects, a series of questionnaires, because you need to see how people think. You need to see how people work. You need to see how people execute. Like at the time of this recording, we're hiring for another marketing assistant. And so I put out some job posts, and one of my very first test projects was for them to do a video. And they had like a set of 7 to 10 questions to answer, and they had to video themselves. So many people, the first one weeded people out. The first assignment weeded so many people out. And one person even emailed in. She was like, you know what? I realized that I have a problem with filming myself, and I tried it and I tried it and I tried it again. And I'm not able to film myself because I'm not satisfied with how I look or how I sound. And so I don't think this is going to be a great fit for me. I said, okay, thank you. Now, although my marketing assistant is not necessarily required to be on camera talking or front facing, I need someone that has a certain level of boldness and confidence about themselves when they're working with me. I absolutely do. I need someone that is comfortable with technology because we use a lot of technology in the company. I need someone who, if something's going on with me, they can hop on camera and facilitate a training or answer some questions or guide our clients. And if someone is terrified of cutting on the camera to film themselves talking about themselves for a job they want, they're not even going to be able to do all the other things. I'm in an industry where I speak on the regular. And if you're with me, you're going to be filmed, especially if we're in person. And so someone who does not have a level of confidence or competence in themselves, they're not going to be able to effectively, they're not going to be a good fit for our organization. And that weeding people out in the very beginning. It's meant to do that. And so I'll be filming another podcast episode where I detail hiring and training tips. But when you want to build your dream team, you have to hire intentionally. There needs to be a hiring process in place. And then there also needs to be an effective training process in place as well. You do not just hire people and then you bring them on, train them for a couple of days, and then that's it. No, this means you're going to need to sit with your people, whether every day or depending on how your business, at minimum once per week. But ideally, every day, making a touch point while you're training them for at least the first 12 weeks, every day. It's necessary. When you want to build a team that can take over for you, that level of attention is absolutely necessary in the beginning. It's absolutely necessary. But I hope that this podcast episode was helpful for you. How to build your dream team. Look out for part 2, where I'll be talking about how to build your dream team and hiring and training methods. Okay. And so definitely make sure that you come and connect with me on LinkedIn at the Jasmine Womack, on Instagram, on YouTube at the Jasmine Womack, across all social media. And if you want to know how to build your dream team, there are 3 ways that you can work with me. Okay. You can visit www.jasminewomack.com/mastermind. And you can apply to the Published and Paid Mastermind, which is where we help you to build out your dream team and make your hires. You can also apply to work with me in a VIP day, which is where we can map out your hiring and training processes for your team. And you can also attend Published and Paid Live, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, October 11th and 12th, with the VIP day on October 10th. And on the VIP day, we're going to be doing an entire session on building your dream team. So I look forward to seeing you and working with you in one of the methods. All right. And if you want more information about Published and Paid Live, you can go to www.publishedandpaidlive.com. If you're interested in working with me in a VIP day, you can apply at jasminewomack.com/VIP. And if you're interested in joining an amazing community within our Published and Paid Mastermind, you can go to www.jasminewomack.com/mastermind to learn more about our amazing program. Until next time, peace, love, and impact.